Wow. Wow. Talk about an early morning stream. Could you even classify this as an early morning stream? I'm not sure. It's like 5 o'clock in the morning. I guess technically it is. Technically, but this is super, super early, so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to say the least to see who we actually get in here at this time. I sent out some notifications. We'll see how that goes. We'll see who joins us today. Let's see who gets first in the chat today. And while we wait on that, we will go ahead and, if I can find it here, pull up the comments on my end. There we go. Sam, what's up, Sam? Um, get this ready to go. Get this ready to go. So if you watched yesterday's stream, you know that I was kind of struggling to stay awake. Like it was a pretty big struggle. I don't know what time yesterday's stream was, but I was like falling asleep near the end of it. I was like falling asleep near the end of it. I caved, okay? I admit I caved. I didn't stay awake. People were wanting me to stay awake, fix my sleep. I'll be honest, that did not happen. I caved. I went to bed. So here we are. Here we are after I was going to say a full night's sleep, but a full day's sleep. Here we are at 5:30 a.m. Can't talk today. Ready for another stream. Good morning, 11:30 here. What's up, Mint? 11:30 there. So for some people, it's like a reasonable hour, right? For some people, it's a reasonable hour. What's up, Pant? I am first. You were almost first. Not quite. Almost. Almost. You were third. Almost, almost. Maybe next time. Maybe next time. So today, guys, today, this very, very early stream, we're going to be talking about grounding yourself into a feeling. Less thinking, more feeling, less thinking. We're going to be talking about that. We did a stream kind of similar to this a few weeks ago. We talked about the whole concept of just feel it. Don't add the thinking, aka the worry, right? We're going to elaborate a bit more on that today because here recently we've really been trying to simplify and tackle what is second fear, aka worry, and why it's such a bad habit, why it's such a strong habit, why it's so tempting. We've been talking recently about how it takes work to break that habit. We've been talking recently about how you really got to kind of stay on the ball with that and practice that because it is such a strong habit. So I just kind of wanted to elaborate a bit further on that today and go over a little bit. I don't like the word technique, but we'll use it here. Go over a little bit of a technique, how you can ground yourself into a feeling so that you're just feeling but doing less thinking, aka worry, aka second fear. It's all the same thing. So grounding yourself into a feeling. I don't like to call it a technique, but you can call it that if you'd like. But that's what we're going to be talking about today. We are going to give it like at least another minute to let some people get in here because this is a very random and odd, strange stream time for us. So we're going to give it another minute, let some people get in here. Um, it says, I've been thinking way too much and find it really hard to stop. Most people find it really hard to stop, right? And we went over that yesterday. We talked about how it's such a strong habit. When you say thinking, of course, we mean worry, adding to the intrusive thoughts. So you get an intrusive thought and you add a bunch of thinking to that, aka worry, or the feelings, it's all the same. You get a thought, you get a feeling, you start adding to that with a bunch of negative thinking. So you say, I find it really hard to stop. Well, you're not alone there. Everybody here who's ever been through it or currently going through it, that's the practice. That's the practice. So you're not alone there. You're not alone there, right? And you say sometimes it feels like the same thing. It can kind of feel like it's running together, but we also talked about that yesterday as well. How it can be such an automatic habit. Right? So maybe a thought 3 hours ago kicked it off, right? But for the past 3 hours, you've been in your head, blah, 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 blah. We talked about that yesterday. We also talked about how it doesn't matter if you can, get out in front of it, which means you become so good at it that you're like, oh, I just had that thought, not going to let that spiral into me following that thought down the rabbit hole of worry, right? Or I had that feeling, not going to let that spiral into me going down the rabbit hole of worry. So you can either, get in front of it like that, right? And sometimes that's easier than others. Or B, you can notice, oh wow, I am down a pretty deep rabbit hole right now, and you can start to try to be more aware of that, start to get back to living more, start to kind of put the brakes on. I think that's what we called it in yesterday's stream, or maybe the day before. Start to kind of put the brakes on that rabbit hole, that worry, right? Once that worry gets going, it does have a tremendously strong pull to it. It does have almost a gravitational pull to it. But either way, we can work on it. Whether we get out in front of it, kind of put those brakes on immediately, or we notice that, hey, we've been in the rabbit hole of worry for like 3 hours now. Let's gradually try to get back into living, and when we notice that we're up there doing that, let's try to use some accepting reminders and kind of put the brakes on that. So either way you go, you're winning, right? Either way you go, you're practicing. So let's get into it. I don't want to ramble too much. Grounding yourself into a feeling is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, we cover the whole intrusive thought thing a lot here on the channel. Intrusive thoughts usually come in the form of what ifs, or they kind of come out of nowhere and they slap you with some very negative sort of thought. Today we're going to be talking more about kind of how you can use the feelings to your advantage, right? So we know that no matter how many streams we do, the goal is to do less worry, aka second fear. So you're doing less worry and you're just living your life. We know that that's the two main keys. But today we are going to go over grounding yourself, right, into a feeling. It says too much thinking about everything, not necessarily. Yeah, it really is a habit. So today we're going to be talking about grounding yourself into a feeling. So we know that our main objective is to live life and to add less worry, aka second fear. How can you use feelings to your advantage to kind of do that? What's another little tool you can kind of put in your toolbox here? So when I say grounding yourself into a feeling, this is something that I would do on occasion myself. Let's say you start to get very anxious, right? Let's say you start to get very anxious. Welcome to the stream beatbox. You start to get very anxious, and you start to feel all of these symptoms, right? Now, out of habit, me and Mint was just discussing habits. Out of habit, almost like a knee-jerk reaction, you're kind of going to get in your head and do a bunch of worry. We call this second fear. What's something you can do instead? Well, something you can practice doing instead is to notice when you're going up here. You're starting to add a bunch of worry to the feelings that you currently feel. Instead of going up here, right, and doing the worry, take your energy, your focus, and your effort into just feeling the feeling. And what I mean by that is, let's say I'm going to use a very common symptom. I know the symptoms, there's a ton of different symptoms, and there's a lot more than just a pounding heart. Like, that's one of the most basics, but we're just going to use a basic one here. So let's say I've got a rapidly beating heart, right? My anxiety's acting up. I got a rapidly beating heart. The first thing I'm going to want to do out of habit is go up here and start adding the second fear, start adding the worry. Instead, I'm going to make the conscious decision, the conscious choice to feel that feeling with my focus and my energy. So I'm taking the focus away from doing the worry, aka the second fear, and I'm putting it on the symptom, right? Now, to some people that might sound like a crazy concept. And again, this is just a tool that you can kind of add to your toolbox here. If it helps you to do less worry, which is the main goal, go for it, right? So we're taking the attention, okay, I'm not going up here adding the worry. I'm just going to notice the rapidly beating heart. I've got my attention on the rapidly beating heart, right? So instead of putting the attention up here, where I do all the worry and second fear, I'm going to allow myself to feel the feeling in its entirety, right? I'm going to allow myself to feel the feeling in its entirety. So the focus, the energy, and the effort goes from doing so much of this up here to really focusing on what that feels like. Okay, what does that rapidly beating heart feels like? Okay, there it is. I'm noticing it. I'm putting the focus on it. I'm putting the attention on it. Okay, I'm feeling. I'm doing less thinking, aka worry, because I've got my focus entirely on the symptom, and I'm really getting to know it. Right? I'm really pulling up a chair and having a seat beside this symptom and really getting to know it. And see, the thing about it is, as you start to make the conscious decision to come into your body and feel the feelings, right? You're living life. You're using the two main keys, and this is just one of, again, I don't like the word techniques, but this is just one of many techniques. Maybe you don't want to use an accepting reminder to get out of the worry. Maybe you'd rather come into the body and just be with the symptoms to stop adding the worry. Whatever. So you're putting the attention on the symptom. You're feeling the symptom. What does it feel like to have a rapidly beating heart? So you're watching it. You're closely observing it, almost like a scientist. Now, you're not closely observing it and adding a bunch of worry. That's what we're trying not to do. But you're closely observing it, and you're observing it so closely that you don't really have much time to do a whole lot of worry, right? Now, as you're observing this symptom and you're being with it and you're really getting to know it and you're really feeling it, you may notice that a few times you have a few hiccups where you want to go in your head, or you do notice that you go in your head and start adding a bunch of second fear and worry. That's okay. You can return to the feeling, right? You can return to the feeling when you spot that, okay? So again, Two main keys are live your life and stop adding so much worry. Stop adding so much second fear. We've called this many different things. Stop following the intrusive thoughts. Nowadays we call it stop fighting with the thoughts and feelings. All of this is done up here, and it's called worry, right? So this is just one of many little things that you can do to try to break that worry habit, to give your nerves a break, man, so you can start to lose the fear of this stuff, so you can break out of that second fear cycle. So to observe a symptom and to be completely with a symptom, to feel it, without doing so much worry because you're too busy observing, right, is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing. Now, some people might watch this stream, and I know how you overthink. Obviously, that's why you're here, because you overthink. Some people might watch this stream and say, oh, God, I can't do that. Oh, God, I can't just focus so heavily on my symptoms, or I just start worrying even more, you know. Some people might watch this stream and say that. Understand that I'm just throwing some suggestions out here for you, some ways to break out of this worry habit. Normally, we sum it up by just saying, stop fighting with the thoughts and feelings. If you notice you're up here doing the worry, give yourself some accepting reminders. You know, I can do this. It is what it is. Come back to living. Normally, that's all we say, but I'm just throwing some extra suggestions at you. So to really be with your feelings closely, in an observing fashion, makes you too busy to get up in your head and add too much worry. Now, I'm not saying you might not have a hiccup or two where you do start to add the worry again. Same concept. If you're using accepting reminders throughout your day, you know, you might be using accepting reminders throughout your day, and then you notice, boom, you start worrying again. That's fine. That's part of the practice. Ups and downs are very normal, right? So you might be trying to observe your symptoms without adding so much worry, and you might notice that you slip back into the worry. That's fine. Just come back to it, right? Same thing as if you're using accepting reminders. You know, 1 minute you might use a little accepting reminder. Okay, it's okay to feel this way. It's okay, I had that thought. Not going to follow that thought. You know, you're living. It comes back. You know, you might notice you slip back up into the worry again. A lot of what we talk about here is rinse and repeat. A lot of what we talk about here is rinse and repeat. Some people don't like to hear that because that feels like a lot of work. It feels like a lot of effort, but it is. Right? And I'm not saying, you know, that's not a bad thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. Anything you've ever worked hard at in your life usually was worth it in the end, right? So it very much is a practice. It very much is a practice. Mint says when I observe it, it changes to new symptoms. And that's okay, right? That's okay. So again, how to observe without fueling. So it's okay whatever the symptoms are doing, right? Whatever the symptoms want to do, or what the symptoms want to do. Whatever the thoughts want to do is what the thoughts want to do. How do you avoid the rabbit hole while you're just observing? You become more aware. If you're starting to go down a rabbit hole, right, of worry, you call yourself out on it. A lot of this has to do with calling yourself out on it. A lot of this has to do, you know, using a metaphor, a lot of this has to do with slapping your own wrist, right? So you might be observing your symptoms, you're not adding so much second fear, and then the moment you notice that you do start to go down a rabbit hole, you know, blah, you know, blah, 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 you know, blah, blah. The moment you notice that you do start to do that, a lot of this practice has to do with holding yourself accountable, right? So the moment you notice that, it's kind of like a mental slap on the wrist. So there you go again. You're slipping off into that second fear. It's calling yourself out, right? A lot of people don't like to be called out. A lot of people don't like to call themselves out. But a lot of this journey does have to deal with calling yourself out, right? So it's a repeated practice. It's a repeated practice. Now, some days are going to be way easier than others. And then other days it's just going to feel I don't like to use the word impossible because it's never impossible, but some days it's just going to feel near impossible not to go down these worry rabbit holes. You know, we all have our days with that. I had plenty of those days on my journey to recovery. So it's definitely not about being perfect, and it's definitely not about never going down another worry rabbit hole again. This is just part of being human in general, right? But it is about holding yourself more accountable, calling yourself out on it. So when you are down these rabbit holes, you're able to pull yourself out with accepting reminders, and hopefully you get to the point where you can just stay ahead of them in general, right? So a thought comes in, a feeling comes in, and you're already ahead of it because you're like, nope, you tried to get me to go down that rabbit hole, but I accept these thoughts and feelings. I'm not going down any rabbit holes. So either way, you're scoring points against this thing. You're throwing a monkey wrench in anxiety's plan. You're breaking the worry habit. You're breaking the second fear habit. Either way, you're winning, right? But hopefully we can get you to the point one day where majority of the time you can stay ahead of it. But for right now, if you can't stay ahead of it and you just got to call yourself out when you're already in it, and pull yourself out of it again and again, rinse and repeat, that's okay too. It does feel like an automatic habit to start worrying. In fact, we've been calling it automatic. It's not necessarily automatic, but it's such a strong habit that it definitely feels automatic. So again, just to kind of come back to the main point of the stream here, if you're with a feeling, right? You're with a feeling, you're with a thought, the thought comes, you're with a feeling, and you want to know how to avoid the rabbit hole. A lot of it just has to do with calling yourself out on it. The moment you start to go down the rabbit hole is the moment that you should intervene and say, hey, you're doing it again, right? Right? So at first that feels like a lot of effort. Well, anytime you go to break a bad habit, it's going to feel like a lot of effort, right? That's why it's a bad habit. Because it took a lot of effort to form the habit. It takes a lot of effort to break the habit, right? But each and every one of you are very, very capable. So really this stream just has to do with, I wanted to share this little technique. Just observe your symptoms, be with your symptoms, less thinking, more feeling, less thinking. Call yourself out on the BS when you do notice that you're going down the rabbit hole, right? Rinse and repeat. But at the end of the day, it'll always come back to the two main keys. Live your life, and while you're living your life, right, less worry. Call yourself out on the worry. Call yourself out when you're doing it, right? Break that habit. That'll always be what the two main keys are. It'll always come back to those two main keys, right? Now, the whole practice and putting in the efforts, that part's on your shoulders, okay? You don't have to be perfect. You're going to have ups and downs. But again, just a little bit of a technique. Observe your symptoms, less thinking, more feeling, less thinking. You know that the worry is the main culprit here. You know that the worry doesn't only not solve anything, but it also just fuels everything. That's a little reminder that I like to give myself, right? Back when I was during my journey, I would always like to remind myself, so pointless to go there. So pointless to start doing the obsessing. So pointless to start doing the worry. So when I would have strong feelings and I would want to go down that rabbit hole, or I would have a thought that caught my attention and I want to go down that rabbit hole, I'd remind myself, worry equals anxiety. The only thing you're going to accomplish by going down that rabbit hole is setting off your amygdala. That's it. You're not going to magically make things change around you with the worry. You're not going to magically fix the way you feel with the worry. None of that's going to happen. But what is going to happen is you're going to set that amygdala off, right? So I would remind myself of that many, many times in the moment. It's very tempting. I want to go down the worry rabbit hole right now, but completely pointless. The only thing that's going to solve is set my amygdala off. We talked about that reminder not long ago here on the channel. We called it Thinking Won't Help Me Here. You remind yourself in the moment, thinking's not going to help me here, right? Whatever it is whatever your accepting reminders are that help keep you out of that worry rabbit hole. Again, you're not going to be perfect. Again, it's a lot of rinse and repeat. Again, you're working on breaking a habit. That's not the easiest thing in the world to do. But at the end of the day, thinking will not help you here, right? The only thing that's going to do is pop off the nervous system, right? Prefrontal cortex, set the nervous system off. That's the only thing that's going to accomplish. Sometimes reminding yourself of that in the moment when you're tempted to go down those rabbit holes can be crucial. Okay, so just a lovely little stream this morning, bright and early at 5:30 in the morning, just to kind of remind you guys of what's going on here, just to kind of sharpen your skills and try to get you on board with everything. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like. We're going to switch on over to post stream, see who we've got in the comments this morning. What's up, old mate? Good to see you. Love the universe. What's up? Is that a coping method? No, that's not a coping method. Let me try to explain. So you say I find myself stopping thoughts. Well, let me explain. Okay, this is a bit of a tricky one. So this comes down to our thoughts versus thinking. So you say I find myself stopping thoughts that pop up and spike my anxiety, and I kind of shut them down immediately. What are you actually shutting down? Right? Are you shutting down your involvement? So you're tempted to get involved with that thought? Because if that's what you're shutting down, great. And that's what it sounds like. It sounds like that's what you're shutting down. So a lot of people think I'm fighting with my thoughts. I'm trying to shut them down, right? Well, you've already had the thought. So there's no such thing as being able to shut down a thought because the thought's already happened, right? It's already there. I think what you're saying is you're shutting down your getting involvement. So a thought pops up in your head and you're like, okay, we're not going to go there. We're not going to go there, right? I accept it. You know, that thought said whatever. It is what it is, right? That's perfectly fine. That's the practice, right? Now, if you got a thought and you jumped in your head and you're like, okay, let me prove to you why that thought's wrong and why that won't help and blah, blah, blah. If you start doing that, then you're trying to fight with the thought. Then you're trying to figure the thought out. Then you're just fueling the thought. But if a thought pops up in your head and you remind yourself, okay, we're not getting involved. Nope, no involvement from me. You know, that thought said I might go crazy. Okay, it is what it is. Not going there, right? If that's what you're doing, then you're accepting the thought, you're leaving it unanswered, you're not trying to argue with it, you're not trying to fight with it, and that's great. You're just accepting it, okay? But if you get a thought and you start trying to debate with it, that's different. That's different. If you get a thought and you just say, okay, thank you for that, right? And you shut down getting involved, then that's great. And it sounds like that's what you're doing. You're shutting down getting involved. You're just letting the thought happen. It happens. You're not trying to prove it right. You're not trying to prove it wrong. You're not trying to prove anything. You're just saying, okay, no involvement from me, right? That's what it sounds like you're doing, and that's great. That's great. Not a problem there. Not a problem there. Let's see here. I started loosening my body every 1.5 minutes when I felt, or every half minute when I felt tension in my body, but that feels like I'm fighting the way I feel. Is it a fight or just worry habit? I think it's the worry habit. I think you're definitely overthinking that one, right? So if you got a symptom and you're just trying to loosen up to it, that's fine, right? That's fine. Now, if you're in your head trying to fight it off, oh, I don't want to feel this, adding all this worry, all this second fear, not okay, right? But from what you're telling me, it sounds like you're just getting into the worry again, right? More like nope, backing out. Well, maybe just change your wording a bit, Mint. Next time you have a thought and you're shutting down your involvement, you're not going to get involved, you're just going to accept it. Maybe instead of wording it like, oh God, backing out, maybe when that thought comes next time, just change your wording up a bit and just say, okay, thank you for that. Thank you for that suggestion, mind. I appreciate it. Maybe just loosen up your wording a bit so it's not so dramatic, so it's not so you get a thought and then you're like, oh God, don't get involved. Oh God, oh God, oh God, right? Right? Sorry, that was disgusting, and I had no choice on that one. Too much due. Um, so maybe just loosen up your wording a bit, less dramatic and more just like, okay, thank you for that. Okay? So less dramatic of a response when trying to shut down your own involvement, more of an accepting response when shutting down your own involvement. Accepting the thought, shutting down your own involvement in a gentle way, in an accepting way, right? Maybe not so dramatic. How did you like that crystal clear burp in high def? Was that nice? Was that nice, guys? Is early morning wake up normal during sensitized state? Absolutely. A lot of people deal with quote unquote morning anxiety. Appreciate that beatbox. Preach it. Preach it. So yeah, I get what you're saying, Mint. Maybe sometimes you get like really dramatic about it and a thought comes and you're like, oh God, no, not going to get involved. Oh God, oh God. You know, you're kind of tense. Well, maybe next time just practicing a more gentle reminder to yourself. Okay, thank you for that. Not going to get involved. You know, the temptation's there, but not going to get involved. Temptation's there, but not going to go down that worry rabbit hole. So maybe loosen your reminders a little bit so they're not so dramatic and they're more chill, they're more just accepting a little reminder. They're not so oh God, right? Hey, what's up, Ghost? What's up, A? Welcome, guys. How you deal with being alone, man? Not lonely, but alone, where all my peeps and friends and fam is not around or not in a radius. So loneliness, a lot of loneliness comes from a lot of thinking. You're very worried about being lonely, worried in the way that you're like, oh man, I hate this. You know, a lot of negative thinking comes along with these labels. So people say I'm lonely. They spend a lot of time thinking about how lonely they are. They're adding a lot of negative, lonely inner dialogue, right? This is going to make the situation feel even worse for you when in reality, loneliness comes from these thought forms, these rabbit holes of how bad it is, how you wish you wasn't alone, and before you know it, now you're just really upset and you're sad about how alone you are, right? So I would say follow the advice here on the channel, right? Whether you're dealing with feelings of loneliness or anxiety, you know, staying out of the rabbit hole is huge. It's huge, and we often call it good life advice, not just good anxiety advice, and we call it that for that reason. What's up, Maddie? Old mate, how you doing? Welcome, welcome, welcome. Let's see. Let's see here. You'll notice that a lot of things in life, whether we call it being lonely or we call it, a lot of things in life come back to they're made so much worse. And at first, you might not agree with this statement, but I promise you, if you kind of, open your mind a little bit to what I'm saying, you'll notice that a lot of situations in your life are made 10 times worse than they actually are through the rabbit holes, right? Through the rabbit holes. And that can apply to just about any situation in this thing that we call life. When we get into the worry rabbit hole over things, they are made 10 times worse than they actually are in reality. A common example to use is I'm stuck in traffic. I'm stuck in traffic. In my mind, it's the worst thing in the world. I'm in the worry rabbit hole. Oh God, what if I get to work late and I get fired because I'm stuck in traffic, but there's nothing I can do? I'm stuck in traffic. I hate it here. I wish I wasn't stuck in traffic. If I show up late to work, I might get fired over this and I might lose my home and I might be homeless. I might be under a bridge. I might starve to death. Right? Okay, come back, reel it all back in. The only thing you're doing while you're stuck in traffic, worried about what's going to happen or could happen, probably not going to happen, but what could happen over being stuck in traffic, the only thing you're doing is frying your nerves, man. You're sitting there stuck in traffic, absolutely frying the nervous system the whole time as you go down these rabbit holes. You got to put the brakes on all this. The only thing you're doing is ramping up your nervous system, triggering your amygdala. You're not actually getting unstuck from traffic by worrying about what might happen because you are stuck in traffic, right? You're not actually accomplishing anything with all this worry. Traffic's not moving any faster because of all this worry, but what you are doing is you are setting off the amygdala. That's the only thing you're accomplishing. And that can be applied to just about anything in life. These worry rabbit holes, that's the only thing you accomplish with them, right? That's the only thing you accomplish with them. So that's just a very cliche example, I know, but you see now kind of why we say this is good life advice and not just good anxiety advice. People spend their entire lives jumping down these worry rabbit holes, not trying to put the brakes on these things, and they stay in a constant state of ramped up. They stay in a constant state of ramped up, and they're not accomplishing anything by staying in this state. The only thing they're doing is ramping the nerves over and over again. Nothing's actually changing due to this worry habit. So not only is it completely pointless, completely futile, but they're staying in a constant state of ramped up because of it. Right? And it's absolutely the most stressful habit in the world and the most futile habit in the world. It is the reason that you find yourself in a sensitized nervous system, first and foremost, and even people that are not in a sensitized nervous system. It is the reason there's so many miserable people. Right? So maybe they don't take it as far as the sensitized people do with the worry over the way they feel in life and end up, really frying their nervous system. Maybe they don't take it that far, but they take it far enough that they're pretty miserable in general, right? It's the human condition, and you're trying to break out of that. You're practicing breaking out of that, and you're going to be so thankful that you're working on this. It might feel like a lot of work because it is, at first at least, but you're going to be so thankful. You really are. You really are. Did I miss any comments? How is the, what do you call it again, old mate? How's the skull meat doing today? How's the skull meat doing today? Sam, I'm glad I looked down. Sam, thank you so much for the $5 tip. Can we give a round of applause in the chat for my buddy Sam? Thank you so much, Sam. I appreciate you. Thank you. We're on a 73-day streak. Absolutely insane. I appreciate it, guys. I appreciate it. Could be an interesting concept to kind of explore there. Beatbox, you say, I have it when I'm alone. Travel alone, stay at home alone. I have never had a panic attack with somebody. Well, let's look at what actually is going on here. Let's not just leave it there. Let's not just say, okay, well, if I had somebody around all the time, I'd never have panic attacks. Case closed. No, let's look at what's actually going on. Chances are, when you're around other people, and I've seen this happen, even with myself back in the past, chances are when you're around other people, you've got your mind somewhere else that's not down a worry rabbit hole, right? Right? So that's what's actually going on. You're doing less of the worry rabbit holes when you're with somebody. It's not that actually having somebody does anything to your nervous system. You know, the physical presence of another human is somehow stopping you from having a panic attack. No, it's that when you're with other people, you're probably going down less worry rabbit holes, aka second fear. So that's what's actually going on here. You see? That's what's actually going on here. Why is that a good thing to realize? That's a good thing to realize because you can practice going down less worry rabbit holes by calling yourself out on it, using accepting reminders, putting the brakes on those worry rabbit holes, not following those thoughts like we used to call it in the past, right? You can do that whether you're in the presence of another person or not. So that's the good news about that. That's the good news about that. Skull meat is tender. Nice, nice. Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad you said that though, Beatbox, because it gave me the perfect opportunity to kind of slip in there and be like, hey, let's look at the facts here. Let's look at what's really going on. Let's look at what's really going on here, right? Are you actually benefiting from being around all these people because of their physical presence, or are you just doing less worry rabbit holes, right? Because you're too busy with these people. So, you know, when we look at what's actually going on here, we'll see how it all comes back to those worry rabbit holes. Worry rabbit holes. I've been loving saying that the past few days. We might even do a whole stream titled that. I don't know. How are you going, bud? I'm doing pretty good. Doing pretty good. I slept like a rock last night, so I've got some energy. Still kind of tired, trying to get woke up, but I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. I feel good. I believe it was Dr. Claire Weeks who said in those words, don't quote me, but something about just dealing with the thoughts and feelings for the time being and not fighting. And by that she meant up in the head fighting, right? Going down these worry rabbit holes. Going down these worry rabbit holes. You got to call yourself out on it when you're doing it and put those brakes on. Put those brakes on. A rinse and repeat process. Very much a rinse and repeat process because it's a practice, it's a habit, it's very, very much a rinse and repeat process. Hey, I appreciate that, old mate. Yeah, if you do enjoy the streams, make sure to toss them a quick little like so we can keep growing the channel. Get this information out there to people who may need it. It's crazy to think that it's 6 in the morning. I'm not used to sleeping as late as I did. I slept all afternoon until about 2 o'clock in the morning. So it's already 6 a.m. and I'm not used to waking up and it already being like 6 a.m. I'm used to waking it up and it being like in mid-evening or something. So a bit weird for me that it's already 6 o'clock. If there was any day to get my sleep on track, it is today. It is today. The no rituals thing changed the game for me, really. Yeah, because, I mean, if you think about it, Beatbox, what's a ritual? It's a coping method. What's a coping method? It's a compulsion. Whatever you want to call it, it's some sort of attempt to fight with your thoughts and feelings. Some sort of attempt to fight with your thoughts and feelings, coping methods, rituals, compulsions, whatever. They always eventually lead to some sort of worry rabbit hole, right? Because you're doing the thing and the whole time you're doing it, whatever. But really, what are they at the end of the day? At the end of the day, the coping methods, the rituals, they're all just an attempt to stop worrying. Do you see that? Do you see that? So let's take a very generic example here. Somebody who's germaphobe, right? They touch a doorknob. They go wash their hands. 3 times, and they think because they've washed their hands 3 times, okay, I'm good. So they stop worrying. So the anxiety is then relieved. It wasn't the actual washing of the hands that relieved the anxiety. They washed the hands 3 times, so they put the brakes on the worry. Putting the brakes on the worry led to feeling less anxious. It was never the coping method that actually solved the anxiety. It was never the ritual that actually solved the anxiety. It was the fact that you did something and then you thought to yourself, well, okay, now I can quit worrying. So you stopped worrying, and that's what relieved the anxiety. You can get to the point where you put the brakes on the worry, whether you do the coping method, ritual, or compulsion or not. Right? Right? Because the thing about coping methods is, as long as you do them, you think you got to do them in order to feel relief. But it's not the coping method that brings the relief. You do the coping method, and then now you're convinced that you can stop worrying. So you stop worrying, and stopping the worry is what brought the relief, not the coping method. So people get an intrusive thought, and they're like, okay, let me do something to figure that thought out. And then they go and they do these things to try to figure that thought out, and then they think, oh, okay, I did the thing, so we're good now. So then they stop worrying, so they get relief. But now, for however long, they're going to have to do these coping methods and compulsions over and over and over and over and over again. But you can understand, right, that it wasn't the compulsion, it wasn't the coping method that brought the relief. You did the coping method and compulsion, and now you feel safe enough to stop worrying, and it's the stopping the worry that brought you the relief, because you're no longer setting the amygdala off. We know that worry sets the amygdala off, right? So it's never the coping method that actually stops the anxiety. It's the fact that you did it, and now you stopped worrying, and stopping the worry is what brought the relief, right? So you can spend the rest of your life using coping methods, which just make your world smaller and smaller and smaller over time, just makes you stressed and stressed and stressed over time, right? Or you can realize that the coping method only works because it stops the worry. You can stop the worry with or without the coping method. You just haven't proved that to yourself yet. You just haven't practiced that yet, right? You just haven't practiced yet. Old mate says 2 words, whiskey sour. So the alcohol stops the worry, right? Dumbs you down a bit, stops the worry, brings relief. Drugs, dumbs you down a bit, whatever, stops the worry, brings relief. Coping methods, okay, stops the worry, bring relief. But do you see the middleman there? What are all these things leading to? They're all leading back to, I do this thing to stop the worry. You can stop the worry without all the other crap that you're having to do, right? And that's what we want to prove to you, because eventually these coping methods are going to lead to a smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller life, especially if they're hard coping methods like alcohol or drugs. It's going to lead to a smaller and smaller, worse and worse life, right? Well, you can get to the point where you stop the worry without all these coping methods. That's what we want you to realize. How? By calling yourself out on it, by building that new practice. By building that new practice. Oh yeah, definitely, old mate. You start to realize that. You start to realize that. You start to realize just how much, you played your own role in the suffering. I don't think it's. I mean, you're very capable of retraining your brain, right? A lot of people might say, "Oh, well, you never drop the label. You never drop the label," and I think you should drop the label. I really think you should drop the label. You start building a better practice. You start building better habits. Those are going to get stronger than your old habits, right? So I would definitely drop the labels. They're not helpful, and they just serve to be very self-defeating. And at the end of the day, if you build your new habits better than your old habits, then that's who you are now. So I would drop the labels for sure. I would drop the labels for sure. I mean, you never have to go back to those old habits. That's always a choice, right? So I wouldn't label yourself as a person with this or that. I mean, it's your choice if you go back to those habits or not, right? So I wouldn't label yourself with anything. You're more than all those labels. You're more than all those labels. Oh yes, it would not be a good stream without a spam bot, at least one of them. would not be a proper live stream without at least one spam bot popping into the chat to say hello. Yeah, the Jack Black does go hard, I will admit. The Jack Black does go hard. I know it's oddly quiet stream. We don't have any music going. I got to get a new charger for this headset, or at least find one. I know I've got some laying around somewhere. So I'd put some music on, but I can't hear it, and then I don't know if there's an ad going or whatever. Writing a fiction novel. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. When's podcast about worry? When's podcast about worry habit? When you stop worrying about it, that's when it'll be. I always tell people they can go at their own pace, beatbox. I don't ever like to tell someone what pace they should go at. So someone's got a strong worry habit, they do a bunch of compulsions, coping methods, all that good stuff. I don't ever tell them that they have to drop everything all at once, right? Because some people are just, what's a good way to word it? Some people are just not capable of that, I guess. So I always tell people it's okay to go at your own pace. It's always okay to go at your own pace, as long as you're working towards it. As long as you're working towards it, it's okay to go at your own pace. That's what I tell people. He do. He do be. He do be. Your new word. Today is going to be an exercise day for me, like actual physical exercise, or like practicing staying out of the rabbit hole kind of exercise. Either way, you're gonna kill it. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You got it. We got a ton of snow last night. Ton of snow, man. Oh, practice. Okay, gotcha. Well, like I said, either way, it's gonna be good. It's gonna be good. When'd you come up with that word, eh? That's a new one. We got our regulars in here. How you guys doing? How you guys doing today? Arnold, the best CJ. You can call it that, Ivan. You can call it that. I call it a habit.
Donation.
Mint. Mint. Thank you, Mint. Mint with the $11 tip says, I have to go now. Thanks a lot for today's stream. Absolutely, Mint. Stay out of those rabbit holes today and enjoy your day. Thank you for the $11 tip, Mint. I appreciate you. That takes us to 16. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Thank you. I know this is a fairly odd stream time, but I appreciate that. Thank you, Mint. 73-day streak. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Am I a regular now? You're getting there, man. I think we can call you a regular now, actually. I think it's safe to say you're a regular now. Yeah, we can do that. Enjoy the rest of your day, Mint, and thank you so much again to Sam and Mint for their tips. I appreciate it. Thank you, guys. We only got one like on the stream so far. Let's run it up. Let's run it up a bit. Smash that like button. Smash that like button. Isn't that what they used to say back in the day? Smash the like button. Hey, what's up, man? Welcome to the stream. I'm not going to try to pronounce your name because I'll absolutely butcher it. And I don't want to do that to you, but I love you more. Enjoy your morning. Absolutely. 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 Oh, yeah, there is one more day on that, isn't there? I said the 8th. Yep. You're right. You're right. I gotta remember. Yeah, you're way beyond a regular, Captain. For the longest time, I didn't know Captain A was sick in chat, but then I started to figure it out and piece it together. I was like, oh, okay. That's who that is. That's who that is. I think the past, like, 4, 5, 6 streams have been pretty solid. Pretty solid. A good way to start the new year off. So, I've been happy with them. We've been using the term worry rabbit hole a lot here recently. I think it was how you word things, Arnold. Like, it's pretty obvious. Most people word things a certain way. Most people type a certain way. They string sentences together a certain way. So it's pretty obvious. It's kind of like that, old mate. It's just like an app. It's just like another app you can use. I guess that's one way you could word it. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. Could you guys not hear me that whole time? Alright. That's unfortunate. Why was I muted? Why the hell was I muted? I'm glad Ghost said something because I would have never even realized. I would have never even realized. I'm really glad you said something. I was muted that whole time. Well, that's awkward. Well, that's awkward. Interesting. Interesting. No, it wasn't you guys. It was me. That was on my end. My bad. My bad. I was muted. My bad. My bad. I don't know why I'm muted to begin with. I'm glad you said something, Ghost. I'm glad you said something. I'm glad you said something. What's up, Chelsea? Welcome to the stream. It does happen. Sometimes you can fall back into the worry, what we've been calling the worry rabbit hole. You ramp up on the worry. You start doing all the extra worry constantly in your head, right? So just go back to the basics. You said that you've watched the videos before and they've helped you. Go back to the basics and reinforce what you've learned. Apparently, we need to sharpen the skills a little bit, and that's fine. It happens. It happens sometimes. No big deal. Take what you know from the videos that you've watched in the past, right? Watch the newer streams if they help. Just start working on that second fear habit. Try to stay out of those worry rabbit holes in the head there. Accepting reminders is what we tend to call them these days. I think back, if you watch the older videos, we used to call it stop following those thoughts down the rabbit hole, right? To answer your question, old mate, because that was during the time I was for some reason muted. Yeah, I know people really enjoyed the podcast, and I'd like to do another one soon. I think that's what you're referring to. I think that's what you're referring to when you say the call-ins. Oh, you got COVID, and it freaked you out, and you went downhill. So, was it the COVID? Was it the COVID, or was it the COVID led to a bunch of worry, a bunch of nasty worry and thinking, and all this mental thinking and worry and second fear, right? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. I mean, of course, it's not fun, I would imagine, to have COVID, right? Like, that's a gimme. But was it the COVID that tired the nerves out, or was it all the extra mental stuff, what we call the worry rabbit holes? That is the question we have to ask. It'll always come back to that. We know that worry equals anxiety. Body doesn't know the difference between a worry and a real danger. So when we're constantly doing all this worry, man, body doesn't like it. Does not sit well with the body, right? That's a fun little fact. Fun little fact. And it really is what brings us all back to the main problem at the end of the day. I have no doubt in my mind that you'll pull yourself right back up. You had a brush with COVID. It tested your skills a little bit. You slipped into some bad worry habits. That's okay. No big deal. It doesn't have to be a bigger deal than that. We can get right back on track. We can get right back on track. Doesn't have to be a bigger deal than that. Yep, that's always been an interesting little brain fact there. The body cannot tell the difference between a worry and a real danger. So when you're constantly down a worry rabbit hole, imagine what that does to your nerves for a second, right? Don't imagine it too hard, because then you might start worrying again. Now, am I saying you have to be perfect and never worry again a day in your life? No, absolutely not. It's a part of being human. It's no big deal. But when it's taken to the extreme, you end up with tired nerves, right? And that's why you're here. So, not saying you have to be perfect and never worry again a day in your life. That's just a part of being human. But you know what I am saying is, if the body can't tell the difference between worry and a danger, well, imagine what taking worry to the extreme does. And that's why we got to put the brakes on that worry, aka the second fear. That's why we got to spot it and shut it down, right? And just accept the thoughts and feelings instead, all because of that neat little fact there. Body doesn't know the difference, worry or a danger. So just imagine what that does to the nervous system when you take it to the extreme, right? When you're constantly up there, constantly, got to put the brakes on that, use acceptance instead. Give those nerves the well-deserved break, a well-deserved break. It's a practice. It's a practice. Yeah, I hope you feel better soon, Chelsea. Definitely a practice, Arnold. I think you're making some progress. Bum, 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 bum. I always, I always check the stream connection anytime you post that GIF, or not GIF, but emoji ghost, because I'm like, is he saying that the stream is lagging or that it's buffering or something? So anytime you post that emoji, I'm like checking the stream connection. You can turn your focus to really anything, Arnold, as long as you're not attaching a bunch of worry to it. You know what I mean? So, you say, can I focus on this or can I focus on that? You can focus on whatever you want. The focus can be anywhere as long as you're not up in your head adding a bunch of worry, aka second fear. So, if you've convinced yourself that you can't focus on what you're doing, or else blah 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 blah, which is a bunch of worry, right? If you've convinced yourself so strongly of that, well then I'll give you permission to focus on whatever you want to focus on, as long as you're not adding a bunch of worry to it. It's like today we said, you can observe a symptom. You can focus on a symptom as long as you're not adding a bunch of worry to it. Well, what normally happens with that, Chelsea, is at night, you don't have as much to do. So, what do you do with your free time? Unfortunately, what most people do with their free time is worry, right? We've been using that word a lot today, but, worry is second fear. So, instead of using the term second fear so much, which I know can be confusing, especially to newcomers, I've just been using the word worry. It seems to make it a bit more clear. Yeah, well, I hope that clears it up for you a little bit, Arnold, so you're not sitting there thinking, oh, not sitting there worrying, which is the main problem. Not sitting there worrying, oh gosh, well, if I focus on this, then I feel like I'm doing that or wrong or blah, blah, blah. So I'll give you permission to focus on whatever you want to focus on as long as you're not adding the second fear, aka that worry. So maybe that'll make it a bit easier on you. Now that you know, as long as you're not adding the worry, I mean, you can do what you want to do, go where you want to go, say what you want to say. Just don't add that worry. Just work on shutting down that worry. Rabbit hole comes, you're tempted to go down it. Just give yourself an accepting reminder. You don't have to go down it. I think that's common, old mate, and it is a form of worry in itself. A thought is very short-lived, Arnold. A thought is very short-lived, but when you get up there and you're running through it and adding all that thinking to it, anytime you're in your head but you're not giving yourself an accepting reminder, you're just in your head doing all the blah 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 blah. We got to put the brakes on that, right? We got to put the brakes on that. So it doesn't really matter if you can, quote unquote, tell the difference. It doesn't really matter. If you notice that you're up in your head with a bunch of blah blah, we'll put the brakes on it. Turn it into an accepting reminder instead. Or if you get out in front of it, that's fine too. You get a thought, you call it out, you don't even go down the rabbit hole to begin with. Of course that's fine too. But either way, whether you can tell the difference between this or that, if you notice at any moment that you're up in your head with all the blah blah, time to use an accepting reminder, right? Time to use an accepting reminder. So oh man, that is a name that's in a foreign language. I definitely cannot pronounce that name. I can't pronounce most names in English, much less a name in a different language. But whoever just sent that $10 tip, thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, I struggle to pronounce names in English, much less a foreign language, so I'm not going to even attempt that one. But whoever that was, thank you so much for that. I appreciate it. Thank you, thank you. We are at 26. Well, you convince yourself of that, Arnold. You fall down the worry rabbit hole so far. You fall down the worry rabbit hole so far that you get so engulfed in it that you don't even know what's true, what's not true. All that's irrelevant. The worry rabbit hole is not going to help you regardless, right? The worry rabbit hole is not going to help you regardless. It's futile regardless. It's just going to set your amygdala off regardless, right? So it doesn't really matter. Bulgaria in the house, me. Well, thank you so much for the $10 tip. I appreciate you, B-Box. I can pronounce that. I can pronounce your username. Can't pronounce your actual name. I can pronounce your username. Thank you so much for the $10 tip. I appreciate you. It's a odd stream time this morning. Odd stream time, so I appreciate that. I know streaming at these times is normally not that popular, but I like to do these early streams sometimes. They're fun. They're fun. Thank you so much, John. Thank you so much, John, for the $4 tip. I think maybe your OCD was bothering you there. You had to round it up. Thank you so much, John, for the $4 tip. That's a name I can pronounce. Thank you so much, rounding us up to 30. I appreciate it. We are 20 away from that 74-day streak. How can I decide what's true for me and what I learned from the situation? Or understand that the worry rabbit hole is futile. So you're already in it, right? You say this is a practice day where you're already in the worry rabbit hole. You're already asking the same questions you've been asking for a very long time, which tells me that you're so neck deep in it already. Well, we can put the brakes on that, because here's what happens. If you don't put the brakes on that, you're going to be asking questions that can't be answered for the rest of the day, right? You're going to stress yourself out. So you're already down the worry rabbit hole. How can I decide what's true for me? What if I don't learn from a situation or an event? Or what if I can't sort the negative thoughts and feelings about that? What if I can't sort that, and then that leads to me being a bad person, and then I end up like Alan Watts, and I'm an alcoholic, and then I end up homeless under the Manhattan Bridge, and what if I can't tell what's true for me and what's not true for me, and I don't know if this is true, or what if I can't learn from an event? What if I can't decipher the event? We're already in the rabbit hole, right? And the thing about that is, by the end of the day, the nerves are going to be like, oh my God, dude, give it a break. I've been sounding the alarm all day. Would you please stop worrying? Right? So before you even take it any further, understand that you're already in it, right? And start to put the brakes on that. Start to be like, okay, well, I'm up in my head doing all this worry, accepting reminder. Try to start to put the brakes on that a little bit. Try to start to put the brakes on that just a little bit. Gradually, try to put the brakes on that a little bit. Gradually, try to put those brakes on a little bit. Try to put the brakes on just a little bit. You don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, right? You don't have to be perfect. Nobody's perfect, but see, we can see the rabbit hole from a mile away, right? We can see that rabbit hole. We can see that rabbit hole. We're going to put the brakes on that because we're going to remind ourselves that it's pointless and that it does not sit well with our amygdala, right? The body doesn't like it, so we're going to try to put the brakes on that a little bit. Ever so gently try to put those brakes on, some accepting reminders, a little bit of living thrown in there, right? The two main keys. We're going to try to put that brake on. I like that. I like being able to give examples of it while it's happening. I feel like that's the best moments. The best moments. Oh yeah, that's a common one, Arnold. That's a common one. Hey, what's up, AC? Hey, take it easy, Arnold. I appreciate you stopping by, dude. Watching the stream instead of doing my schoolwork. Hey, I mean, it is what it is. It is what it is. We're just having a fairly early morning stream here. Yeah, I mean, well, you can see the very clear worry in that statement, Chelsea, right? So you can see the very clear second fear just in that statement. I mean, and you start the message off by saying I shouldn't fight not sleeping either, and you're right. So you're already aware. You're already very self-aware, apparently. And to address what you said earlier, Arnold, I wish I could figure it out before I'm actually in the rabbit hole. You'll get there. Just keep practicing. I'm glad you like it, AC. We've changed up all the screens to try to make them match. I'm a big fan of pixel art. I'm a big fan of the color purple. I tried to keep it all themed, so I worked on that the other day a little bit. I'm glad you like it. Small organ, big problem. If you do a lot of worry, it's a big problem, aka second fear. Right? Then I can agree with you, Ivan. Hey, listening while driving. Hey, what's up, Olivia? Hope you're doing good today. Hope you're doing good today, Olivia. Shout out, shout out. Doesn't have to be a problem, right, Ivan? Hey, there you go, old mate. All right, beautiful people. It's a very, very weird stream time. Very weird stream time for everybody, I believe. Well, not for everybody. Time zones exist. I often forget that time zones exist. But anyway, we're going to go ahead and end this one here. We're going to go ahead and end this one here. Hold on a second. Hold on a second. We have got a $20 tip. A $20 tip. I think somebody's using Old Mate's name. Some people like to do that here on the channel. I won't sell you out. We'll just call it from Old Mate since that's what they want to do. Old Mate, thank you so much for the $20 Cash App that says from Old Mate. We're just going to leave it at that. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Moving on to a 74-day streak. Thank you guys. Right on time. We're about to shut it down. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Like I said, we're going to leave that from Old Mate. Thank you so much, Old Mate. I appreciate you. Somebody said from Old Mate, so I used to call people out on that. I used to be like, stop using trickery. But hey, if people want to be selfless like that and give the credit to somebody else, that's fine with me. That's cool. I don't mind. Thank you so much for that. So we're moving on to a 74-day streak. I love you guys. We are going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being you. And until next time.